I'm Nisha DeGaring.
And I'm Doug Jessup. Welcome to this episode of Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us who we are. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are these passed down through generations? Through words, through deeds, through stories.
When was the last time you thanked a veteran? It's time for Veteran Salute Stories. You mentioned the Vietnam War.
Yeah, tough time.
Okay. If you don't mind me getting into that a little bit deeper, because again, I don't necessarily know if our kids and grandkids understand what it's like to be in that kind of circumstance.
Yeah.
Where did you go? You know, what branch? You know, give me a feel for what's going on.
Well, they were bringing on the draft, which young people now don't understand what it is. We have a volunteer army. But back then, all of the men had to sign up in high school. And they would draft a number. It was just a rotary type of situation. And then you would be drafted into the military. You didn't have any choice where you're going to go. You would be drafted in. I wanted to go on an LDS mission, and so did a whole bunch of other guys in my ward. We had 12 or 13 guys my age who wanted to go on missions. The church had gone through an agreement with the Selective Service, the draft board, and said, okay, we will only send one missionary out of each ward every 6 months.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so my possibility of going on a mission, and Mark Sorensen's possibility and Dave Ulrich's possibility became very slim. So we decided to go ahead and enlist in the National Guard. And we did that and actually went into the 144th Evac Hospital. That's kind of a funny story because Mark and I wanted to go into Special Forces. Okay. And we went through and took all the tests and got very good marks on the tests. And we were going through our physical, and as we went through the different stages of our physical, we got to the eye test, and I went through and told them all the letters that were in there, and then I went to the color blindness test, and then I went to something else, and Mark was coming behind me, and he rattled off all the numbers and for the eye test, and then I heard him to my left as the person across the desk from him said, okay, read the numbers in this page. And he said, what number? And for the first time, Mark figured out that he was red-green colorblind.
Oh, wow.
And so he wasn't going to be allowed to go into Special Forces because of the color blindness.
Right.
And I made the decision that I wanted to stay with him. And so we switched from Special Forces into the Utah National Guard and the 144th Evac Hospital. And we were trained as medics. In the end, that was a wonderful thing that happened to us. I loved my medical training. I didn't love being in the Army. But there were 24 guys from Utah that went with us down to Fort Bliss, Texas. And we were all in the same company of 200. And the other guys in the company were from all over the United States. And they decided to call us 24 Utah guys the Crickets.
Okay.
And so we were known as that. And it was just kind of a fun time. We learned a lot, came back and then served in a lot of the different hospitals around the state of Utah. And then in summer camps, we would go to San Francisco or Denver or Washington, or we never got to Hawaii. That was always the goal.
Yeah, well.
But never got there.
For people that might not understand, what does a medic do?
A medic is trained to basically put their life on the line. That when other people are in trouble, they've been shot or blown up or whatever else, you run into the fight instead of running away from the fight. And one of the really sad things, after our basic training, we came home, and I went on a mission to South Korea. Many of those same guys in my company went directly to Vietnam, and many of them didn't make it. And that's a pretty terrifying thing when I think back on it.
Veteran Salute Stories is made possible by a generous grant from the Fedora Foundation and viewers like you. There's something special about memories. It might be that one fragrance, or it might be that song, or just that TV commercial when you were a little kid. You know which one I'm talking about.
Get ready for the freewheeling sports.
Super trick board machines trucking through the night. The feeling is freewheeling. The feeling's dynamite. Feeling free. Feeling free. My freewheeling Ford is TNT.
Freewheeling means you can get options like panel interiors, special paint, trick wheels, and more from your Ford dealer.
My freewheeling Ford is TNT.
My name is Josie White. This is Family Heritage Stories, and we'll be right back.
One of my favorite inspirational quotes is from Audrey Hepburn. She said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." Everyone has unique skills and interests. For example, I am not a painter. But how did you get into your occupation? What's the story behind the Mill Creek Garden song?
That's a great question, Doug. About 22 years ago, we were talking in the marketing discussions about we should have a jingle. And so we thought, well, who are we? What are we about? And if somebody was in their garden, what would they be thinking? And so the marketing director, she wrote it, and then we worked on it for a couple more months, and we got it just right. And then we had someone take it to Missouri and had a professional singer sing it, and we used to put that on the radio. But you know what, I decided that I learned the song and I'm gonna sing it. So here we go. Great gardens begin right here. Beautiful flowers year after year. So much to choose from, so much to see. So much fun for my garden and me. For the best selection of plants and trees. Come on in and you will see why every day's a great day at Mill Creek Gardens. Ba 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 ba.
And now, Dad Jokes with Mike Agrilius.
People like books with rhymes, meter, and things that poets know. Someone said, "What rhymes with orange?" I said, "No, it doesn't." All from the book, Whatever Floats Your Goat, the granddaddy of dad jokes, for kids and old goats.
Hi, my name's Steve Haga. You're watching Family Heritage Story, and we'll be right back.
Your history is everywhere, if you know where to look. But searching through all this? Are you kidding me? Actually, Kindex makes it easy to gather records and add them to your online archive. So everyone can jump in and index their records, making every word searchable. With Kindex, I know them anyway.
You know,
There are powerful, positive, and inspirational stories out there. They're the caring stories.
Line up those 3 holes.
It's handmade. When they brought it, it actually came with the mattresses and it came with the comforters and the sheets.
Sarah Ashworth is a single mom. She couldn't afford a bed for her daughters.
And I told them from the very beginning, don't worry, because one day you're going to have a bunk bed, you're going to have your own room, and you're going to share it with your sister. And they finally got it, and I was like, see, your dreams came true.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is an all-volunteer organization that believes that all children deserve a safe, comfortable place to lay their heads. Jay Tucker is the co-chapter president of the Syracuse chapter.
In the last year and a half, we've built over 200 beds. We've delivered those beds to children who are sleeping on the floor, they're sleeping on the couch.
It was time to roll up my sleeves and help.
We start with raw lumber. We cut them to length and they go over to sanding. From there it goes to our tapping stations. There it goes to the drill presses. From there, one set of boards goes over to the headboard station. The other goes over to the longer board station where we build the side rails and the safety rails. From there, they're stained with vinegar and steel wool mixture. Once they're dried, the headboards are all branded and drilled for countersinking for the lag bolt. From there, they go to children's homes right here in Utah.
What's sleep in heavenly peace mean to you?
Adult problems aren't kids' problems. And these kids are in positions that they have zero control over. Allowing them to have a bed where they can sleep in heavenly peace and get a good night's sleep, that's what that means to me.
Thank you so much for the beds.
These stories deserve to be told. These are the caring stories.
What does remember where you came from mean to you?
But so far as I understand, I think his 5th great grandfather was a man named George Tingey.
Okay.
He lived in England, in Bedfordshire, England. And there was one point in time, he was married and had a son named John. And there was one point in time where he was accused of stealing grain.
Okay.
He was brought up on charges and was acquitted.
So this one ancestor had the charges of the grain theft dismissed. However, understand that there was a second group of charges?
There was a second group where he was charged with stealing sheep.
Oh dear.
But he was convicted this time.
Bad.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, that was good.
Okay, anyway.
So he then was shipped off from England over to Australia, which was a penal colony at that time. And he never did see his wife and his son John again. They never saw him. But we understand that he'd gone over to Australia and had formed a new family. And so there's a group of his descendants in Australia. Why is this important? Well, John Tingey met some of the very earliest LDS missionaries, and he converted to the LDS Church and came about, I think it was 7 or 8 years later, immigrated to the United States. And I believe his mother also, I think her name was Charlotte, and she came with him and came to the United States. And he is the first of the Tingey group that became members of the church.
And he was a direct ancestor, or relative of yours then?
Direct relative,
okay.
Yeah. And George's family, now in his second family, now in Australia, it is really interesting to me how many of our family, and we've had lots of missionaries, I mean, I don't even know how many, 50 in our family. So many of those people have gone to Australia on the missions. Clarence and Hazel Tingey, my grandparents, were there as mission president in the early 1920s. They came home after 3 years, and then after 6 months were asked to go back, and they went back for another 3 years. So my father, Buzz, and his brother, Joe, and their sister, Marion, who was invalid and never married, all three of them grew up in Australia, in Sydney. But Clarence was the president of the entire continent of Australia, and that was huge. It's about the same size as the United States. They did a great job. Dad and Joe went into the Navy during World War II. Dad became an ensign. Joe was, I think, a fighter pilot. He was a pilot. And after World War II, they actually got mission calls to Australia. So did Earl Tingey, so did Spencer Tingey, so did so many other people.
A lot of Tingeys out there.
Are going to Australia on a mission. And then in 1985, Dad and Mom were called as mission president for the Sydney, Australia mission again. We have lots of Australian friends and a real deep commitment to the Aussies.
There is a lot you can learn about traditions, values, and culture when you travel.
After cruising across the Atlantic Ocean, it was nice to see the USA again. Well, at least a territory of the U.S., Puerto Rico. We landed in the capital city of San Juan and toured various historical sites. Here's a fun fact. The smoothbore cannon at the fort established the international waters line. Let's put it this way. The cannon could shoot 3 miles. If you didn't have an invitation, you just might visit Davy Jones' locker. We did have an invitation to Museo de Arte de Puerto Rico, otherwise known as the Museum of Art at Puerto Rico. The museum showcases over 1,000 works of art from the 17th century to the present, including prints, paintings, drawings, sculpture, photographs, and of course, don't forget, new media. You got to check out the masks. Puerto Rico is also pretty proud to have a Miss Universe crown and the sash in its collection. Broadcasting from San Juan, Puerto Rico, I'm Doug Jessup. Objects with stories? Now those are treasures remembered.
I'm joined now by Micah Christensen at Anthony's Fine Art. And Micah, what do you have for us today?
Today we have a very rare painting that is over 300 years old. It's this behind us, and it is by an artist named Bartolomeus Wittig.
Who was this artist?
Now, I would be shocked if anybody knew his name today, because there are really only 5 paintings that are attributed to him. One is in the Louvre, one is in the museum in Nuremberg, and then 2 are in cathedrals, and then there's this piece.
So a prolific artist, if he has, I mean, those are big places.
Well, he was a very prominent artist in his day in Germany in the 17th century. And that was a time when, if you're German and you're an artist in the 17th century, the main media that you're working in is either sculpture, famous, the Germans are famous for these huge religious sculptures, even today, that were done, or this is the era of the printing press. And so most artists are graphic artists who are working in wood blocks, the kinds of things that would illustrate a Bible in the 17th century. So it's unusual to have an artist named Bartolomeus Wittig, and there's a clue in his name. Bartolomeus is not a very German name. Bartolomeus is a name he would have adopted after having gone to Italy to study. So this is an Italian-influenced German painting of the 12-year-old Christ in the synagogue from the New Testament story.
It's a big piece, too.
It is a big piece.
There's a lot going on. What should catch our eye in this piece?
Okay, what should catch your eye is that it has the Christ child, who would have been about 12 years old in the story, standing at the center, and he's far out-aged by all of the men who are around him. Now, according to the story in the Bible, the 12-year-old Christ was there with his parents, Mary and Joseph, for a religious festival, and they went back home not realizing that they had left Christ behind, who was at this time not even a teenager. When they came back, depending on which scholar you talk to, 1-2 days later, they found him in the temple with men who were far more educated, who were far more experienced, discussing with him, which would have been after several hours or days, the scriptures. So here you have the Christ child in the center, and then you have these men who were all Jewish in various attitudes of disbelief, interest, curiosity about the things that he's saying. And it's left to our imagination as viewers as to what that conversation is.
You are so right. There's so much going on, and every face has a different emotion. Not only that, everyone's in a different color, almost different shades of colors.
That's right. The colors are a significant clue too. So we've got really two colors here that I want to point out.
Okay.
The first one is this blue, which is a derivation of either smalt, cobalt, or of the most expensive pigment, lapis lazuli.
It wasn't easy to get that color.
No,
back then.
it's a color that's called in Italian ultramarine, because in Italian that means beyond, ultramarine, the sea. It came from Afghanistan, and it was more expensive than gold to paint with. So the Christ child, who's the most important figure, is in the most expensive color, which was a symbol of heaven in its blue. And then this red that you see is also used very sparingly because it comes from the New World. So this was painted in 1661, and that red is cochineal. Cochineal is an insect that grows on cactuses in Mexico. Even today it's used to color red M&Ms, lipstick, Coca-Cola cans, and it is the strongest red, and it is just under the price of gold at this time.
But just a splash of red in this picture.
And he's used it in a way that draws your attention throughout the canvas, right? So it's sparingly put in various moments in order to pull your eye across the entire narrative. And I'd be remiss to say if I didn't bring up that, I'm half Jewish by descent, and I'm descended from Ashkenazi or European Jews. And this would have been a time of tremendous persecution, that is, in Germany. There were about 300 communities of Jews who were massacred in the 17th century. And I would like to think that the sympathy that's shown towards the figures in this painting, I mean, they're not shown as being angry or upset at Christ as he's sharing this message. And they look like the Jewish garb of the time. I've talked with figures at the museums in Munich and in Berlin who are interested in this painting from an anthropological standpoint to see how Bartholomeus Wittig would have used real Jewish models and depicted their real clothes as they existed in Germany in the 17th century.
What an incredible piece to have here at Anthony's Fine Art. Wow. Everyone has a story, and objects with stories are treasures remembered.
From old paintings to new videos on your kids' devices, we're all trying to do one thing. We're trying to make a connection. It's the power of stories. How powerful are stories? We asked Maura.
It's priceless. It's priceless to me because when I was first sitting with the guys listening to their stories, it's something you just can't get back. And there's a lot of stories I wish I would have had recorded from my dad, my mom, my grandparents. So at least we were able to get these stories recorded. And to have them videoed and digitized is key because the younger generation, sitting with my nephews, doing homework with them over COVID, they weren't looking at books, they were looking at screens, and they can look at this on a screen.
Everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories are told through music.
que para siempre morinque. Yo estoy invitada. Oigo música por todo con tan fuerza. En las calles y adentro lo puedo sentir. Esa es la canción de mi gente. Puerto Rico, yo te quiero. La isla del encanto se llama Puerta. La gente más fuerte del mundo dice Puerta. Con corazones grandes y voces que gritan, nuestro orgullo es tan profundo. Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, te quiero.
Of discovering the secret of Skinwalker Ranch. The world is watching.
This season on The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
We need to flood Skinwalker Ranch with instruments. Maybe we send 1.6 gigahertz at it.
This is unlike any experiment we've done before.
Heads up, they're coming down!
Oh my God, is there some invisible force causing this to happen?
What is inside the mesa?
Look at that. It's like jelly. I don't know what the hell that is.
The data shows the triangle could be a wormhole.
No way.
I don't think the public is ready for what you got.
Is the military letting us know we're being watched?
Do they know something we don't? What is that?
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. New season premieres Tuesday, April 23rd at 10. Part of History's Strange and Unusual. Only on the History Channel.
What makes you smile? Spry xylitol toothpaste makes me smile. I think it might help you too.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories are not passed down from generation to generation, they become lost. And it's as if these people never lived.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Doug Jessup.
And I'm Nisha DeGaring.